Yesterday, we got the news that Coach K is retiring, and more and more of that has come out today. We're going to get to a lot more of him later on in the show, too, because we saw a first look at his press conference, which, just a precursor, was absolutely sickening.
Yeah, what's crazy is we knew that he's a great coach, a huge coach, one of the best coaches, and now we know that he's a massive dork.
Oh, I could have told you that. But I don't know if I'd use the word dork. That's the problem. I mean, I like that word.
Well, this is radio.
I know.
And public, live radio,
right.
not serious.
Yeah, when we go off air, I'll tell you what he really is. We'll use that for radio. But with the departure of Coach K and Roy Williams, okay, this is the angle that people need to understand when they look at college basketball. You would think that with these two now being gone, and this is just the start, because I'm telling you, as you well know, we talked about Bill Self signed the lifetime contract, right? He can go whenever he wants. Tom Izzo is also going to be one of the next ones I think we'll see. Jim Boeheim is absolutely on the list. You go down to legendary older coaches in college basketball. It just so happens that Roy Williams and Mike Krzyzewski are leading the way with them retiring from the game. But you would think that college basketball as a whole would be upset with that, to see them go. But I'm telling you, other coaches and definitely incoming young players are all for this right now. They're all for it. They're happy to see them go. For one, there's this hope that the blue bloods like Duke and Carolina will struggle and their reign will end. And you've looked at the last few years, right? Baylor is a good example now. Gonzaga is another one. Michigan, teams like that have started to see more success. But of course, another reason is recruiting too. You know, it's going to be a lot better for some of these schools that you had top guards and forwards that are saying, hey, I was going to go to Carolina or Duke. Well, now it's real easy to say, that's great. It's still Carolina or Duke, but hey, look over there. There's no Coach K. There's no Roy Williams. Why would you want to go over there and what could potentially be an experimental type couple of years with now Hubert Davis and John Shire, right? Former players, but they've never been head coaches here at this level, so you don't know how it's going to pan out. Instead, come over here to X school, and we have had this coach for a long time. Oh, by the way, he's younger too. He understands the game. It's going to be somewhat easier, I think, for these teams to recruit. But the other part of it, too, is like we talked about yesterday, college basketball, and this is no shock or surprise to anybody, is a young man's game when it comes to coaching. It simply is. I don't think that's a hot take at all to admit that as well, that toughness amongst players for sure in this game seems to be a bit lacking at times. I mean, that's just what I've seen, and I honestly think like that's like a societal thing at this point. As a whole, the idea of toughness and what toughness means and is with players and people seems to be kind of fading away. You mix in the transfer rule, you mix in the transfer portal, and now coaches have to realize that their guys can leave at any time. With all of that coming together at the same time, it's a no-go for these older coaches. And they might say, something like, oh, I don't care. If they don't want to be here, fine. I don't want them here anyways. And that's something that sounds good, and that used to be a classic line that you would tell your guys, but now you have to, at the same time, know that your top recruits could be the ones that get out of here and it gets real all of a sudden. If for instance, that were, let's just say last year that Mike Boynton had been here for a long, long time. Let's say he was an older coach, and Kay Cunningham comes in, and something goes wrong to where, Kay doesn't like whatever's going on, and he goes, man, I'm just going to leave. And Mike Boynton goes, that's fine. I don't want you here anyways. Well, if that's the case, then he actually leaves, then what happens last season, right? I mean, I would have to think it's going to be a big difference. And so it starts to get really real with that. On top of that, coaches have to be now, and I've said this, this goes back to the Gundy stuff last year. Mm-hmm. Coaches have to be aware of every single thing that they say and do down to the detail. And for me, that's no way to really coach. I mean, obviously you want to be aware and you understand that part, but with every single little thing that goes on now, it's unbelievable because it could turn on you at any second. But this is the new era right now where you want players that want to be buddy with the coaches, and not all of them are that way, but a lot of them want to be coddled, that type of thing, and waited on. And some of these younger guys, these younger coaches in the game are used to how this works, and they will make it work. And the game wants a smoother transition, meaning that these older coaches are on their way out. Let's get in this new era of young guys that understand how to interact and work with these players coming in, because it's a different mindset amongst these players. And what Coach Williams and what Coach Krzyzewski and all these older coaches used to do in the past, not saying they couldn't have adapted, but I don't think it would have been worth the effort to try and stick around for however many years you had left anyways. Plus, like we talked about yesterday, you think of all the things that these two coaches have already accomplished. It made sense to walk away at this point. I get it. But college basketball, believe it or not, it may not seem like it based off the whole, oh, we love Coach K, we love Coach Williams, we wish them the best. They're thrilled, okay? Yeah. Because it's the new era here for college basketball.
Yeah, it goes back to the conversation we had yesterday with, could Coach K, attempt to make a professional career out of this? You go back, 10 or 15 years, and the NCAA makes the transfer rule, and the transfer portal was very prevalent 10 or 15 years ago, then there's enough time for Coach K to be like, you know what, I am going to adapt to this. We're going to, we'll figure out a way to work around this. We are a blue blood. We're landing top talent out of high school. If we lose someone, one and done, it's going to be easy to poach someone else, like a Cade Cunningham from an Oklahoma State or whatever, other schools across the country. We can do this. It's not going to be a problem. And I don't care. I don't care what Coach K says. Today during his last press conference, his introductory, I'm retiring. So he was asked about, well, does it have anything to do with transfer portal training? No, me and my wife, we decided it's time to not deal with the transfer portal. Like, you've coached a long time, but when you get into it, and I think the players leaving, like this past year, that was I don't even remember what his name was, the forward that left North Carolina.
I'm skipping his name.
But when you get kids like that leaving the blue blood programs, all of a sudden, well, you know what? I went to Duke because I was told that I was going to play, and I was going to play a lot, and I played 13 games and 6 minutes a game.
Walker Kessler. Sorry.
Walker Kessler.
I was going to slip in my head there.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna contact these other coaches that were recruiting me just as hard as Duke was, who won 26 games this past year. Well, they just lost their top player. I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna be an absolute star. So that's and it goes back. You're talking about toughness. It's the sport's totally different, and it goes to the NBA.
Big time. It's been the NBA for a while, I think.
100%. And it's not. You don't get the traditional big man anymore. Everyone's starting to shift outwards. It's a very and there are exceptions to the rule. You get guys like Avery Anderson, who's averaging 3 or 4 assists a game, who is is rather selfless while also putting up 15 to 20 points a game. But the game is shifting to a very me-oriented game. You can't yell at players anymore. You can't get on to players anymore. Especially now that they can go anywhere they want and be available. So, I don't blame Coach K for getting out. I don't blame Roy Williams for getting out. And if I'm being honest, go back to yesterday. I'm really surprised Boeheim wasn't the first, because he seems more old school than Coach K and Roy Williams is.
I think if it weren't for his kid playing, it would be probably time to hang it up. Right?
Sure. Yeah. And it's a different game. It's a totally different style. I think you are going to see a lot of younger coaches start to take over. I think you're going to see a lot of assistant coaches, like with Pastrana going to Florida to replace 2 assistants that became head coaches. They were relatively younger guys. They weren't in their late 50s, early 60s. They're relatively younger. So I think you're going to start to see that shift. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next year or so you see Boeheim hang it up, and you see some of the other older coaches like, you know what, this game isn't the way it was. And I get it. Tom mentioned it yesterday. He was like, I don't like the way things are shifting, because it's not the same anymore. The game of basketball today is not the same as it was 10 years ago. Same thing with baseball. Every sport, except for maybe football, and it's starting to go back to more of a, it's kind of never really changed other than hitting and targeting. But baseball and basketball, they're not the same as they were 10 years ago, especially 20, 30, 40 years ago when these guys got into the game. So I get the frustration, but if you can't adapt with the times, I don't blame you for hanging it up.
Yeah, there's too many reasons. And you look at, for instance, Roy Williams and Coach K, in their 70s too. So you understand, I'm not saying, oh, man, they should have coached till they were 85 or 90 years old. Obviously, it's not possible. You're not going to do that. But too many things at this point lined up to where you can say, I'm going to call it. Coach K did this with the ability to go through one more season as well and get his retirement tour and all of that. But it's way too coincidental, for us to believe anything he said of my wife and I have thought about it for a long time. Yeah, well, you got a little extra. If that's the case, you got a little extra motivation with these changes in basketball. And it's like you said, if Roy Williams, you go back, and Coach K, you go back, and all these coaches, you look at what they've done in the past and how they've made players or helped players into what they are today, what they did become. Right, a lot of really good players came through those programs, some of the best we've ever seen. And you go and all of them, the majority of them, if you listen to anything they've said about their coaches respectively, well, they've had a huge impact on my life because they did it this way. It was hard a lot of the time. It was never easy, but I'm so thankful to this day that this is what I learned from Coach K or from Roy. Why? Because they went about it a different way. And I'm not saying that you can't have an impact on kids anymore, because you can, but you can't do it the old way of tough love. I really think that's almost out of here. Like, the idea of tough love doesn't exist anymore, or if it does, it's a very new version of it. And you have to adapt. I get you have to adapt with the times and all that stuff too, but there's so much pressure every single time on these coaches now to make sure that they are 100% correct on everything that they say and do, whether that be politically or just make sure it's a quote unquote safe space for all these guys. And that's not what college basketball was and was ingrained into it. It was a tough, gritty game that you had to work your tail off, and if you didn't want to be there, didn't want to work harder than the next guy, then you learned your lesson by either leaving or not playing or getting booted. That was it. Now it's, well, I don't like this situation. I don't like what's going on here, so I'm just gonna transfer. I'm gone. I'll try it somewhere else, whatever. I don't care if it screws this team that I'm with. I don't care if the coach that recruited me now all of a sudden is like, well, that was a bunch of wasted time, because clearly it was for some of these guys. So there are a lot of different factors that go into this with this new era. But I do think college basketball, as far as if we're ready to usher in this new type of game, which clearly with NIL, with the transfer portal, those are two big ones, right? You're ready for it. Then getting some of these older coaches out of the way, which may sound harsh, but that's what it is a plus for them. They are thrilled with this being the case, because now it's no longer, we hope something doesn't pop up over here at this school or this school or this school, because these old-time coaches can't adapt with the times and all that as well. So it's and if I had to choose, like if you told me right now, choose between old-style college basketball and today's college basketball, I'd choose the old style. I would every single time. Not saying that I don't agree with some of the stuff going on, because I do. I think the transfer portal can be helpful. You know how I feel about that. I don't have a huge issue. I'm in favor of NIL. That's something I have no problem with as well. But the idea that we have to lower the standard of what it is to be a tough player, right, to be a strong player, is something I don't like to see go away, unfortunately. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. And part of it is with the coaches out of the way. That's something that's easier to bring in and implement into the game of basketball.
Well, and you get it a lot with the older coaches. You like Brad Underwood's a good example. Brad Underwood is an older coach. Dude's a dog cusser. He just absolutely. I sat in. I was towards the back. I wasn't hiding out, but I sat in on a little bit of one of his practices one time. That dude is violent. He is violent. I mean, I don't think I've ever been yelled at or swore at like he was yelling at some of his star players. And that style of coaching is slowly starting to get out. Yeah. Because you see some of these younger coaches, you have to relate to these kids. You gotta relate to the youth. You gotta relate to their interests and needs.
Yeah, and that's spot on. And it's relate with every, like you're talking about, every little thing. It's not just let me relate with something specific with each of these guys. No, it's everything that they want and are involved in and want to do. I have to relate to that right now,
because these kids aren't committing to universities anymore. They're not. You're starting to see more and more across the boards kids committing like they would commit to Kentucky or North Carolina or Duke or a school like that. They're not committing to a program. They're committing somewhere, okay, who is going to be the best for my future? Not, okay, I love this school. I grew up watching them. They're really successful. I can spend 2, 3, 4 years here. I can do really, really well. And, if in 2 or 3 years I'm good enough to go to the pros, that's great. But I'm here to help this program. I think you still get a lot of kids like that, but I think that the emergence and the widespreadness of AAU ball and these grassroots programs, more and more kids thinking, hey, listen, and we've all seen the videos. You see the fights break out at these high school tournaments.
Yeah.
They're 14-year-old kids. Like, there's no way your 14-year-old, like, first of all, your kid's not any good. So you don't need to be spending $3,000 a month to send your kid to New York and to Florida and play in all these massive tournaments. But that's the problem, and it dwindles down to the participation trophy type stuff. Every parent thinks that all their kids are the best, and all these kids are fed all this crap for so long that they think they're the best. So you have to cater to every little thing, and it just goes up to the best.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's brought up that way. It's expectations, and it's like you said. You saw some of the best teams in the past, college basketball-wise, that had players that stuck around for 3 or 4 years. And they grew together as a team, and some of them became unstoppable because they had been together so long. You don't see that anymore.
About the program.
Very rarely. It absolutely is, all right, can I go to Duke, but at the same time, is that the best avenue for me to get straight to the NBA?
Yep.
You know, that's the idea, and I'm with you. I think the old mindset of, well, hold on. Before I think NBA, let's see what I can do here with my guys. Let's chase a goal. Like, cause when players come in and they even say that, like, I can't wait to help the University of Michigan go after and get to an NCAA championship. That's the only thing on my mind. I can't. It's hard for me to actually believe that anymore, whether it's true or not, because most players, that's not the case. The idea is what you really want them to say, if you want them to be honest, and they would be, is, I'm really excited to go to the University of Michigan so Juwan Howard can help me, elevate my NBA skills. That's what I can't wait for.
I need I need Michigan to be very, very successful, because that helps me get to where I need to go.
Yeah.
We need to win the championship because that makes me look good.
A lot of me in there.
Well, it stems from giving a bunch of 7-year-olds the World Series style rings for winning a tournament, a 2-day tournament in Lincoln County. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, if you wanted a ring when I was growing up, playing pee-wee ball and midgets and stuff like that, you had to win a state tournament, or you had to win your state tournament and a regional tournament and somehow make it into the Little League World Series. Like, you didn't go to Noble, South Oklahoma City, play 3 games and get a championship ring and a trophy.
Yeah. And
that's baloney.
Yeah, that's why those.
You want a ring? Go to a replica night at Driller Stadium.
Well, and that's the thing, is that you miss that idea of you have to earn
it. It means something.
Yeah, and
it doesn't.
You have to earn it, and it has to mean something. That is part of the mindset.
Well, yeah,
like I said,
you get all these local teams, and every weekend they're posting a picture from a tournament, and they all got rings. Like, you win like 12 rings a year. You're playing, your kids are up a grade. You're playing kids that are younger, and you're winning these $200 buy-in tournaments.
Yeah.
That's got like 4 teams. Get out of here.